Once upon a time, there was a mansion so quiet, even the wind seemed afraid to whistle through its corridors. The children no longer cried there, they no longer laughed either, and deep within its marble halls, behind locked doors and silken curtains, a man worth more than most nations sat at the head of a long table every night eating in silence, alone. His name is Donovan Vale, Trillionaire, titan of finance, a man who once built cities out of dust and dreams. But ever since the accident, the one that took his wife and left his 3 children traumatized and wordless, he no longer builds anything. He just maintains. Schedules, therapists, routines, silence. The Vale estate sits on 300 acres of manicured sorrow, fountains that don't bubble anymore, grand pianos that haven't been opened in years, a swing set that groans in the breeze like it's mourning. In the East Wing, the triplets live under strict care. Micah, Maisie, and Milo, 6 years old, born minutes apart. Since the night their mother died in a storm, they haven't spoken. They do not play. They do not smile. And according to every expert, every therapist, and every specialist flown in from Switzerland to Seoul, they might never again. But this isn't the story of what they've lost. It's the story of who came to knock on the kitchen door when all hope had dried up. She arrives quietly, in the early morning light, wearing shoes worn thin by prayer and dust. Her name is Imani. She is not a professional. She has never trained in child psychology. She doesn't carry a degree or a laminated badge. What she carries is a tattered brown notebook, a warm thermos of tea, and a kind of stillness that makes even the birds pause to listen. Maria, the head housekeeper, finds her reading the flyer at the back entrance, the one none of the agencies were supposed to see. Imani just smiles gently and says, "I know this isn't the normal way, but I was meant to be here. Today." Maria hesitates. But something in the woman's eyes, soft, expectant, unafraid, stirs something long buried in her own chest. She nods, slowly, and lets her inside. They sit her at the kitchen table, where silver appliances gleam untouched. Cook hasn't made pancakes in months. No one wants breakfast. No one talks. Imani doesn't offer a resume. Instead, she asks softly, "What are the children's names?" No one's asked that in a long time. Micah, Maisie, Milo, twins by biology, shadows by grief. Imani listens, not for credentials, not for payment, just for the ache behind the silence. The next day, she begins. She does not wear a uniform. She wears calm. She does not speak loudly. She hums. Soft lullabies. Not songs, really, just pieces of warmth. Like memory wrapped in breath, the kind of tunes a mother might hum while washing dishes, or folding laundry, or watching rain through a window. The children don't respond at first. They watch her with hollow eyes. They do not speak. They do not run. They barely blink. Micah rocks in place, gently, thumb pressed to his bottom lip. Maisie draws circles in the air with her finger, over and over. Milo stares at the light as if waiting for it to flicker out. Imani does not push. She simply exists. She places fresh flowers by the window each morning. She lays out soft cloth for messy fingers, though no one touches them. She leaves little peeled oranges near the coloring table and pretends not to notice when they're missing an hour later. In the evenings, she sits by the doorway and hums again, and in the silence, something almost like breath begins to return to the room. Not laughter, not yet, but breath. Donovan watches through the cameras. He does not understand her, doesn't trust her. She wasn't vetted, wasn't hired through his channels. She simply came. His lawyer tells him to remove her. His assistants schedule interviews for her replacement. But Donovan doesn't call her up to the main wing. Instead, he reviews the footage night after night. He watches how she touches, nothing but leaves the whole room changed. He watches the children sit closer now, not quite beside her, but not far either. And he remembers, faintly, the way his wife used to sit on the carpet with them, quiet, present. The new therapist, a young man with glasses and data charts, scoffs when he hears about Imani. She's not certified. It's irresponsible. Donovan nods mechanically, but he doesn't remove her. Because one night, through the grainy screen, he sees something small. Micah touches her wrist. Just once. Brief. Almost accidental. But he doesn't flinch away. And for the first time in almost a year, Donovan's breath catches. The next morning, Donovan steps into the East Wing himself. It's been months. Imani is on the floor, reading aloud from a book of clouds. She's not even looking at the words, she's making them up. Maisie watches her lips move. Milo clutches the hem of her skirt. The children do not notice him, but she does. Imani meets his eyes, and for a second, the weight of the house trembles. "Thank you for letting me stay," she whispers. He doesn't know what to say. He hasn't said thank you since the funeral. That night, it rains. Hard. Thunder rolls above the estate, like grief returning. Micah curls into himself, trembling under his blanket. Maisie rocks harder. Milo stares at the window, wide-eyed and breathless. Imani enters with no umbrella. Wet, calm, she sits at the foot of their bed and hums. It's not just any lullaby now, it's their mother's. The same tune Donovan's wife used to sing when storms rolled in. The same one etched in every memory of every warm night before the world collapsed. The triplets freeze. Then something like air shudders out of Maisie's chest. A laugh. Small, unsure, but real. Micah blinks, startled, then giggles. Milo covers his mouth like it's forbidden, but the sound escapes anyway. The camera records everything. Donovan watches from the study, eyes frozen. 3 children. 3 soft, stuttering, beautiful laughs. Not in months. Not since the night she died. He does not cry, but the tea in his hand shakes. The storm outside rages, and somewhere in the quiet of that house, something impossible has just happened. The children laughed. Again. And it all started with a woman who was never on payroll. Just present. Just there. Tomorrow, the house will wake differently. But for now, the rain sings against the glass, and Imani hums on the edge of a miracle. And the house, once filled with silence, begins to breathe. The rain doesn't stop until morning. It softens sometime before dawn, tapping lightly on the skylights like a timid guest asking to stay a little longer. But inside the East Wing, something has already changed. The silence isn't so heavy now. It breathes. Donovan stands by the window of his study, still in yesterday's clothes. He hasn't moved much since he saw the footage. The sound of laughter, his children's laughter, still echoes faintly in his head, real, undeniable. Cracked open from a place even the specialists couldn't find. And it wasn't coaxed out by charts, or therapy puppets, or another expensive program flown in by private jet. It came from her. The maid, Imani. He doesn't call her that anymore in his mind. Not the help, not the risk. Now, she's something else. He doesn't know the word yet. In the kitchen, Maria brews tea as she always does, but her hands are lighter. There's something in the air, not joy, not quite, but movement, like the wind has turned. "I heard them," she whispers. Imani nods quietly, drying dishes by the sink. Her hair still damp from last night's storm. Maria places a hand gently on her shoulder. "Whatever you're doing, don't stop." Imani doesn't answer, but she smiles, faint, soft, humble, the kind of smile that doesn't ask for recognition, only grace. Upstairs, the children are awake. They're not talking, not yet, but they're sitting on the same carpet closer now. Maisie holds a stuffed bunny by its ear, something she hasn't touched in months. Micah traces raindrops on the window with his finger. Milo hums under his breath, imitating the lullaby Imani sang last night. Donovan watches them from the hallway, unnoticed. He sees something simple. The children aren't just existing. They're noticing each other, the world, her. Imani enters softly, carrying a tray. Sliced bananas, warm toast, honey. No commands, no rush. She kneels beside them without a word and places the tray down. Then, she opens her notebook, the brown one. Edges worn, pages soft from years of handling. She begins to sketch. A tree, with 3 children underneath it. No faces yet, just form. Micah peeks over. Quietly. She doesn't push the notebook toward him. She just continues, slow and peaceful. Maisie scoots an inch closer. Milo places one small hand on the page, right over a drawn leaf. Imani hums again. This time, the tune is different. Not a lullaby, but something close to it. A hymn, gentle and breathy, wordless. The children still don't speak, but they are present. That's the miracle today. Presence. Later, Donovan reviews the footage again. He watches how she doesn't instruct. She invites. She doesn't explain what she's doing. She simply does it with care. And the children follow not because they're told, but because they feel safe enough to. He remembers his wife, Elise, how she never fought the silence in the house. She just filled it with warmth. Small things. Tea left near his books, ribbons in Maisie's hair, poems scribbled on the backs of receipts. Her absence had created a void too big for logic, and for so long, Donovan tried to patch that void with experts and schedules. But maybe what the children needed wasn't structure. Maybe it was someone who saw them. At 3 p.m., he walks down to the East Wing. He doesn't bring his phone, doesn't wear his watch, just walks. He finds Imani in the garden, kneeling in the dirt with Micah beside her. They're planting something. Radish seeds, she says, without looking up. His fingers wanted to dig, so we did. Donovan frowns. We have a greenhouse. I know, but he picked this spot. Micah glances up briefly, then presses another seed into the earth. Donovan watches his son's small hands, muddy and sure. Then he watches Imani, who still hasn't stood. You're not following any plan, he says, not accusingly, more confused. No, sir, she replies gently. He folds his arms. And yet, they're changing. She wipes her hands and finally looks up at him. Not changing, returning. Donovan doesn't know how to respond to that. Imani continues. Pain doesn't steal the soul, it just buries it under silence. He blinks. She stands, brushes off her skirt. But when someone listens without demanding sound, the soul finds its way back. That night, Donovan doesn't watch the cameras. He walks into the children's room himself. He sees Maisie asleep with her hand resting on Imani's knee. Milo curled up with the bunny. Micah still awake, staring at the stars through the skylight. Imani whispers, Do you want to sit? He hesitates, then nods. She pats the floor beside her. No throne, no leather chair, just carpet. He sits, and for the first time in a long time, he watches his children not through a screen, but in breath and warmth, and now. No one speaks, but no one needs to. He hears their soft breathing. He hears the echo of Elise's lullaby in Imani's hum. He feels the ache in his chest shift like old ice cracking under new sunlight. And when Maisie stirs, barely awake, she doesn't look to the nurse or the doctor or the wall. She looks at Imani, then at him. Her mouth doesn't form words yet, but her eyes, they say something close to, stay. And he does, all night. No meetings, no charts, just presence. As morning breaks, something changes again. Imani leaves a blank page in her notebook on the kitchen table, and in small, crooked handwriting someone has written the word tree. Donovan stares at it. He doesn't know which child did it. But it doesn't matter, because someone tried, someone remembered, someone reached out of the silence, and someone laughed. Once. That's enough for now. Tomorrow, maybe they'll draw a sun, or write another word, or just sit in the garden again. It doesn't need to be a miracle. It just needs to be real. And today is real. The page stays on the kitchen table all morning. A single word. Tree. Donovan stares at it again before leaving for his office. He doesn't touch it, doesn't frame it or file it. He just lets it be, because somehow the fragile curve of each letter feels like a heartbeat too sacred to disturb. In the East Wing, the air is different. The staff whisper less. They pause more. Maria starts making soup again. Real soup, the kind with herbs and garlic and the memory of being fed with love. Even the old groundskeeper, Jonah, is seen smiling near the east garden as he trims the hedges into something soft, not severe. It spreads, the quiet joy, like breath finally exhaled after holding it for too long. Inside the children's room, Imani kneels by the low shelf of art supplies. She doesn't arrange them in rows like the aides before her. She lays them out like choices, open, curious, alive. The triplets don't speak, but they move with intention now. Maisie pulls out a red crayon. Micah brings the sketchbook closer. Milo arranges the pencils in a pattern that only he understands. Imani hums softly, the same note from the lullaby, only this time she weaves in a new rhythm, slower, with pauses, inviting. It's a song without lyrics, yet somehow the children begin to sway to it, like leaves stirred by unseen wind. Donovan enters the room and stops short. No one notices him right away. The triplets are too focused. Micah is drawing a circle. Maisie is pressing stickers onto the margin. Milo is building towers with crayons. And Imani, she's not directing, she's not teaching, she's present. That word again, presence. Like Elise used to be when she'd sit on the floor beside them, tracing letters in the air, letting them mess up the strokes again and again until they got it right. Donovan steps forward. His shadow falls across the floor, and for a split second, everything pauses. Micah glances up. Then he does something small. He taps the space beside him on the rug. An invitation. Donovan's throat tightens. He lowers himself slowly, his knees stiff from years of boardroom seats and power posturing. He doesn't know what to do with his hands, so he lets them fall onto his lap. Imani doesn't speak. Neither do the children. They just return to their colors. A moment later, Maisie picks up a purple crayon, hands it to him gently. He takes it. It's warm from her fingers. Without knowing why, Donovan begins to draw. He draws a sun. Not well. A lopsided circle with spiky rays. Milo leans forward, presses his thumb beside it, an imprint. And Donovan smiles. A real one. Small, awkward, but it lives. Later, in his study, he finds an old photo tucked behind a book, Elise holding the children when they were just babies. One in each arm, the third tucked against her chest in a sling, her smile wide, her eyes soft. He closes the book slowly, then opens the drawer where her old notebooks are. He hasn't touched them in years. He finds one with a sunflower drawn on the front, faded, torn at the edges. He flips through the pages, and then he finds it. The song, the one Imani has been humming, Elise's lullaby, scribbled in Elise's handwriting, with pauses marked out carefully, and a note, for when they're scared, and I'm not there. He sets the notebook down like it's glass. He breathes in, then walks to the east wing again. At the doorway, he hesitates. But Imani meets his eyes. She's holding the notebook the children drew in today. She offers it to him. No rush, she says softly. They're remembering, he says. She nods. And forgiving. He swallows hard. Forgiving what? She doesn't answer right away. She just turns toward the children. Micah is now trying to braid yarn. Maisie is humming something tuneless but joyful. Milo is sleeping on the floor with the bunny wrapped in a blanket. Donovan kneels again. Slower this time, more deliberate. He opens the notebook to the latest page. 3 trees now, one with a heart carved into the bark, another with 3 swings, and in the middle, a stick figure woman holding 3 small hands. No names, no words, but meaning, so much meaning. They remember her, he whispers. Imani nods. They also see you now. He looks at her sharply. I don't deserve that, he mutters. You don't have to deserve it, she replies. You just have to stay. That night, Donovan stays for dinner in the East Wing. They eat simple food, mashed yams, soft greens, roasted plantains. Micah eats with his fingers, carefully. Maisie tries to feed Milo a piece of fruit. He giggles and turns away. Laughter again, like sunlight, through cracks, and Donovan watches it like a man starving. He turns to Imani, who sips from a small mug of tea. Why did you come here? He asks quietly. She looks down. My sister worked here once, a long time ago. Said it was a sad place. Said she left after the accident. Donovan blinks. I don't remember her. You wouldn't, she replies. She cleaned bathrooms. He feels shame rise in his chest. Imani looks at the children. She told me the silence here wasn't just grief. It was fear, cold, like no one was allowed to cry, or speak, or heal. Donovan exhales. It was unbearable. Imani's voice softens. It still is sometimes. But silence doesn't have to mean emptiness. Outside, the wind shifts. The swing set creaks again, but this time, it's not from decay. It's from movement. The children, just before bed, had asked to go outside. They didn't speak, but they tugged on coats. Milo pointed toward the door. And now, under the fading dusk, they're sitting on the swings for the first time in 2 years. Not swinging, just sitting. But it's enough. Donovan watches from the porch, arms crossed, the night air cold against his skin. Imani stands beside him. He looks at her, noticing the calm in her face. "You're not afraid of silence," he says. "No," she replies. "Silence is where we hear the truth." He nods slowly, and for the first time in a long time, he feels like a father again. Not because he's fixed them, but because he's here, in the silence, breathing. The next morning, the mansion wakes differently. There's a softness to the air, a stillness that no longer feels heavy. Even the light through the windows carries a gentler hue, like the house has begun to exhale after years of holding its breath. In the east wing, laughter does not return. Not yet. But there is something else now. Anticipation. The children rise before the sun finishes rising. Micah pulls on his socks without help. Maisie brushes her own hair. Milo carries his blanket to the window seat and waits for Imani. She arrives with the same quiet grace, her notebook tucked under one arm, a thermos of warm tea in the other. But something about her feels different too. She looks at peace. The triplets watch as she sits on the rug, legs folded beneath her, hands resting in her lap. She hums once, just a single note, and they gather. No words, just movement, presence. Imani opens the notebook. Inside, she's drawn a large square with 3 smaller figures inside it. Micah points at the window. "Garden," Maisie whispers. A breath catches in Imani's chest. Not because of the word, but because it was said aloud. Clear, soft, whole. Maisie repeats it. "Garden?" Micah nods beside her, his thumb still pressed gently to his bottom lip. Milo claps once. They want to go outside. Donovan is already awake. He's in the study reviewing quarterly reports when he hears Maria's voice from the hallway. "Sir, they want to go out." He stands quickly, heart suddenly racing like he's late for something urgent. By the time he reaches the back veranda, he sees them through the glass, shoes on, light jackets zipped, Milo with his bunny under one arm, Micah holding a packet of seeds. Imani is tying Maisie's braid with a yellow ribbon. It's Elise's ribbon, he remembers. She used to sing lullabies while tying that same ribbon knotted just so. Donovan swallows hard and opens the door. No one speaks. But the children look up as he steps outside. This time, no one flinches. Imani gives him a nod, a quiet welcome into their sacred space. Together, they walk into the garden. The sun is just beginning to touch the tops of the hedges. Dew still coats the grass. The soil is damp, rich. Micah leads the way to the small patch they began digging days ago. Donovan kneels beside him. "Radishes," he says, voice rough from disuse. Micah nods. A small smile flickers at the edge of his lips. Maisie presses her hand into the dirt. Milo draws a heart in the soil with a stick. They plant together. No hurry, no orders, just rhythm. Imani watches from a distance. She does not intrude. Her faith has always been in the waiting. Donovan glances at her. "Do you do this often?" he asks. She raises an eyebrow. "Plant. No. Heal." She looks away, thoughtful. "I don't heal," she says quietly. "I listen. The soul does the rest." Later that day, a therapist arrives. Not one Donovan scheduled, not anymore. This one is new. Young, kind eyes, soft voice. She doesn't wear a white coat, doesn't carry charts, just sits on the floor beside the children and listens. Donovan watches from the hallway. At one point, Maisie walks over and puts a flower in the woman's hair. Micah colors a tree with orange leaves. Milo traces the outline of his bunny on a piece of construction paper. It's progress, but not the kind professionals measure. It's the kind that lives in the breath between moments. That evening, Donovan finds himself sitting in the old nursery, the one they haven't used since Elise passed. Dust covers everything, but the rocking chair still creaks like it remembers. He opens one of Elise's old notebooks again, flips past the lullabies, stops at a page halfway through. "If I'm not here one day, I hope you don't replace me with structure. I hope you replace me with love." He closes the book gently and breathes. Downstairs, Imani prepares warm milk for the children. She adds a pinch of cinnamon, the way Elise used to. Maria helps without being asked. Even the cook, who hasn't smiled in weeks, jokes about baking bread again. The house is changing, not fast, but truly. At bedtime, Donovan joins them again. No camera, no screen, no agenda. Micah sits close beside him. Maisie wraps her arms around Milo protectively. Imani hums. This time, Donovan joins. His voice low, uncertain, but present. He remembers the melody. He remembers Elise. He remembers himself. And as the last note fades, Maisie looks up at him. "Will you come back tomorrow?" she asks. Donovan can't speak. His heart swells, mouth dry. He nods, slowly. "Yes," he whispers. "Yes, I will." She doesn't smile. She just leans her head against his shoulder, and for the first time in forever, so does he. The next morning, Donovan wakes before the alarm. He doesn't check the markets. He doesn't reach for his phone. He sits in the stillness of his room, a mug of black coffee warming his hands, and watches the sky soften into day. The silence no longer frightens him. It's no longer empty. It's full now with breath, with memory, with possibility. He remembers the sound of Maisie's voice last night. "Will you come back tomorrow?" It wasn't just a question. It was a bridge. And for the first time in years, Donovan had said yes to something that wasn't transactional. He steps into the east wing without hesitation. Micah is already at the window, sketching light with his finger. Maisie is folding small pieces of paper into tiny boats. Milo is balancing wooden blocks with incredible precision. Imani is seated on the floor, as always, her back straight, her eyes soft, her presence still. She looks up as Donovan enters. No surprise, no fanfare. "Just welcome. They asked for you this morning," she says gently. Donovan blinks. He hasn't been asked for wanted like that since Elise. He walks over and sits beside Micah, without needing an invitation this time. "What are you drawing?" he asks softly. Micah doesn't answer with words. He simply hands his father the pencil and points to the window. Donovan looks out. The tree in the garden, their tree, the one they planted together, its leaves trembling in the morning breeze. Together, father and son begin to draw. Imani watches them, heart full, but says nothing. This is their moment now. Later, the triplets gather around the garden again. Maisie carries a plastic bowl filled with flower petals. Milo hums quietly his own tune, offbeat, yet beautiful. Micah digs a small trench with his hands, the soil damp and sweet-smelling. Donovan joins them again, sleeves rolled up, kneeling without hesitation. They are planting a new patch today. Sunflowers, Elise's favorite. Imani hands him the seeds, her fingers brushing his for a moment. "They remembered," she says quietly. He nods. "So did I." In the distance, the house phone rings. Maria answers. It's the agency. They want an update. The therapist reports have shown minimal, measurable progress. A new team is ready to be flown in. Specialists from Berlin, a professor from Tokyo. They've read the files. They've prepared proposals. Maria looks at the children through the glass door. She sees Donovan laughing as Milo throws a handful of dirt in the air and Maisie squeals with delight. She tells the agency, "We're no longer taking applications," and she hangs up. That night, something new happens. During story time, the children speak, not just words, sentences, short, clumsy, beautiful sentences. Maisie says, "Can we keep the tree forever?" Micah says, "I want to draw the sky." Milo says, "I had a dream. Mama was here." Donovan stops breathing for a moment. Imani closes her eyes. The children don't cry. But Donovan does, quietly. No one says anything. They just sit there, breathing together. Later, after the children are asleep, Donovan walks Imani to the back veranda. Rain is beginning to fall light, soft, rhythmic. He doesn't offer her a coat. She doesn't ask for one. "I don't know how to thank you," he says finally. "You don't have to," she replies. "They're the ones who did the work." He looks at her. "But they wouldn't have. Not without you." Imani smiles. "Grief builds walls. Love builds bridges. I just showed them where the door was." A long pause. Donovan exhales. "Imani, why did you really come here?" She looks at him, the way only someone without fear looks at someone used to being feared. "My sister worked here, yes, but she's gone now. Passed years ago. Cancer." Donovan's expression shifts surprise, sorrow, recognition. She always spoke about this house. About Elise, said there was something beautiful here once, buried deep under sorrow. Imani looks out at the garden. "I came because I had a dream where a woman in a yellow dress told me, they don't need a therapist, they need presence." Donovan's breath catches. Elise wore yellow. Always. Especially in the garden. I know, Imani whispers. She was the one in the dream. Silence again, but not empty. Heavy with meaning, with belief, with something neither of them dare name. The rain falls gently now, and in the distance, the wind carries a faint hum. A lullaby. Elise's lullaby. Donovan looks out into the night, eyes full, heart cracked open. I thought this house would never know joy again, he murmurs. Imani touches the wooden railing beside her. It doesn't have to remember joy, she says. It only has to allow it. Rain drips steadily through the night. It doesn't storm, just whispers. Soft taps against the windows, like the world is rocking the house to sleep. Inside, the Vale mansion glows gently, not from chandeliers or sconces, but from something unseen, something like healing. Donovan walks the halls long after the children fall asleep. He passes rooms he hasn't entered in years, the music room, the study Elise loved, the nursery they never repainted. Everywhere he goes, the silence has changed. It no longer condemns. It listens. And it reminds. In Elise's old writing desk, he finds her last letter, one she'd never sent, one she probably never meant for him to read, folded carefully in the drawer, tucked under dried petals. Donovan, if anything ever happens to me, please don't try to replace me with perfection. Just be present. Let the children feel safe again. Even if they never speak, let them feel held. You don't have to do it alone. Love is never meant to be done alone. He folds the letter and presses it to his chest. Morning comes gently. Micah is the first to rise. He pads across the hallway in his socks and wakes Maisie with a whisper. Milo climbs into their bed minutes later, bunny in hand. When Imani enters, they're already waiting by the art table, 3 blank pages laid out. They're ready to draw. They don't need direction. They just need her presence. Imani hums softly as she pours warm water into small cups for watercolor painting. The tune she hums now is different. Still Elise's lullaby, but softer, almost woven into breath. Maisie dips her brush and paints a figure with long hair. Micah adds a large sun. Milo, carefully and slowly, paints a red door. Donovan arrives just as they're finishing. He doesn't say a word. He kneels beside them and picks up a brush. Together, they paint silence into story. Later that afternoon, a package arrives. Not from an agency. From Donovan himself. He has commissioned a small wooden bench engraved with the names Micah, Maisie, Milo. It's placed beneath the garden tree, the one they planted together. That evening, Donovan walks the children out to it. No nannies, no cameras, just the 5 of them. Imani sits nearby, but doesn't interrupt. Micah sits in the center of the bench. Maisie leans her head against his shoulder. Milo lays the bunny across the wood. Donovan sits on the grass in front of them. "Do you know why I made this for you?" he asks softly. Maisie shakes her head. "Because this is your tree," he says. "The place where things started again." Micah looks at him. "Is this where Mama watches us from?" Donovan's eyes sting. He nods slowly. "Yes, I believe so." Milo reaches out, fingers touching Donovan's wrist. "Can we sing her song?" Donovan blinks. "You remember it?" Imani begins to hum in the background. The children nod. Maisie starts first. The notes are uneven, unsure. Then Micah joins. Then Milo. And finally, Donovan. 4 voices. All different, but together. The lullaby floats into the garden like a promise, a new beginning. That night, Donovan walks Imani back to the staff quarters, just like he always does now. They stop by the hallway near the nursery. He leans against the door frame. "I never told you this," he says, "but I used to be terrified of stillness." Imani looks at him quietly. "I used to fill every minute, every hour, with meetings, numbers, movement. Silence meant loss. And now?" she asks. "Now," he says. It feels like breath, a long pause. Then she speaks. "They will still have bad days. I know. They will still forget sometimes. I'll remind them. They might not always speak. I'll listen." She smiles. Soft, proud, tired in the most peaceful way. "They called me Mama," she says after a beat. Donovan freezes. "What?" "This afternoon, when we were planting. I thought I misheard, but they said it again. Mama." He stares at her, and for a moment, the air thickens. But then he smiles, not with sadness, with awe. They chose you, he whispers. They don't see me as her replacement, Imani says gently. They see me as safety. Donovan nods, voice hoarse. They've never said that word to anyone, not even Elise. Silence falls between them. Not awkward, not distant, just full. Donovan places a hand gently over his heart. Thank you. Imani doesn't answer. She doesn't need to, because healing isn't loud. It's not a speech, not a performance. It's the quiet promise that someone will stay, and she has. The days stretch longer now, not because of the sun but because of the laughter. It doesn't come in waves, not yet, but it trickles in giggles during bath time, chuckles in the garden, tiny squeals when Milo's bunny gets mud on his nose. Moments that would have gone unnoticed in the past now feel like miracles in motion. Donovan no longer watches from the corners. He sits with them. He reads to them. Poorly, at first. His voice is stiff, his cadence uneven, but the children don't mind. Micah even corrects him when he skips a page. Maisie leans on his shoulder during every story now. Milo insists he tuck in the bunny too. And Imani, she begins to step back. Not out, just back, letting space fill where silence used to live. Letting Donovan find his rhythm again, not as a billionaire, not as a man of structure, but as a father. She doesn't hover. She observes, and quietly. She begins to prepare to leave. It's not because she feels unwelcome. It's because she knows her purpose was never to stay forever. It was to help them remember, to return them to one another. That morning, as the children nap, curled up together on the garden bench, she sits by the window in the kitchen with Maria. They don't need me like they used to, she says softly. Maria looks up, startled. You're leaving? Imani nods, slowly. Not yet, but soon. Maria sets down the tea towel in her hands. They'll miss you. I know, Imani says. And I'll miss them. But healing doesn't mean clinging. It means trusting they can breathe on their own. Later, Donovan finds her sitting in Elise's favorite reading nook. He doesn't speak at first, just sits. Then he asks the question that's been rising in his chest for days. Are you going? Imani doesn't turn to him. You already know the answer. He exhales, slowly. I'm scared, he says. She does look at him now. Of what? That it will all fall apart again. She studies him, then replies gently, It might. He looks up, startled. But if it does, she continues, you won't fall with it, because you're not hollow anymore. He nods slowly. Her words sting, but they settle like truth. What if I don't know how to keep this going? Then you learn. Silence. Then Donovan speaks again, quieter this time. They called you Mama. Imani smiles softly. Only once. It doesn't belong to me. But they gave it to you. She looks out at the sky. No, they gave it back to themselves. That night, after dinner, Donovan gathers the children on the garden bench. The tree above them has begun to bloom, small yellow buds pushing out from the ends of each branch. Sunflowers ring the base. He holds Elise's notebook in his hands. This belonged to your mother, he says. She used to write songs and dreams in here. He opens to the last page. Blank. He hands each of them a crayon. Will you help me finish it? They nod. Each child draws something different. Micah draws stars. Maisie draws a house. Milo draws a heart. Donovan adds a sun. Then he takes the pen Elise once used. And he writes, We remembered how to love again. He closes the book and presses it to his chest. The children huddle beside him. Imani watches from the veranda. The next morning, she packs her few belongings, a notebook, a scarf Elise once wore, given to her by Maisie, the bunny, returned by Milo with a shy smile. You need him now, he said. She walks to the garden alone. Donovan is already there. He holds a small wooden box. Inside, a key. To the greenhouse, he says. It was Elise's. We never opened it again after she passed. Imani takes the key. She says nothing. Then Donovan adds, You could stay. She smiles. You could let go. He swallows. That's what I'm doing. He pauses. Thank you, Imani, for everything. She shakes her head. I just held the silence with them. No, he says quietly. You turned it into music. She hugs him once. Soft, steady, final. Then she kneels before the triplets. They don't cry. They wrap their arms around her. Maisie places a daisy in her hand. Micah kisses her cheek. Milo whispers, "Mama said thank you." And Imani, for the first time in years, lets herself cry. Not out of sorrow, but fulfillment. She walks down the path slowly, until the garden disappears behind her. But the music lingers, and in the house she leaves behind, laughter now lives in the walls. Rain falls again on the Vale estate. But this time, it doesn't feel like grief. It feels like renewal, gentle, steady, life-giving. The garden soaks it in. The flowers bloom brighter, the tree stretches taller, and on the wooden bench beneath it, 3 children sit quietly, watching raindrops dance on leaves. Donovan joins them without needing to be asked. He holds a blanket, warm from the dryer, and drapes it over their shoulders. No words, just presence. It's been 3 weeks since Imani left. 3 weeks since her soft humming faded from the hallways, since her quiet footsteps stopped at the garden gate. But somehow, she hasn't really gone. Her absence is full of meaning, like a final note still ringing in the air after the music ends. Donovan keeps her notebook on the coffee table now. The children flip through it every evening. Micah traces the old drawings with his fingers. Maisie adds new pages, her own sketches. Milo presses flowers between the sheets, the way Imani showed him. They've found rhythm, not routine, not structure. Rhythm, the kind that breathes, the kind that bends, the kind that holds. Today is different, though. Today is Elise's birthday. Donovan almost forgets until he walks into the sunroom and sees it. The children have built something. Not with Legos. Not with words. With memory. They've placed candles on the windowsill, paper stars hanging from yarn. Maisie has drawn a picture of their mother in yellow. Donovan stands there, frozen. Micah looks up at him. "We didn't forget," he says. Milo adds, "She's still here." Donovan kneels. "Do you miss her?" They all nod. "Me too," he whispers. Maisie wraps her arms around his neck. "Can we sing her song?" she asks. He clears his throat, voice shaking. Yes, they sing. No piano, no music, just voices, raw, uneven, whole. Outside, the rain slows, the clouds thin, and a soft beam of sunlight cuts through the sky and lands on the garden tree. Later that night, Donovan writes in Elise's notebook, his own entry this time. "They remembered, then they forgave, then they grew. So did I. Thank you for choosing presence over perfection, even after death. The children are whole again, not because I fixed them, but because I finally listened." He closes the book, places it on the shelf beside her journals, then tucks the children into bed. Maisie sleeps with the bunny now. Micah with the sunflower drawing. Milo clutches the key to the greenhouse. Donovan sits in the hallway, staring out the window. A figure moves at the edge of the garden, faint, almost imagined. A woman in yellow. She doesn't speak. She doesn't wave. She simply stands beneath the blooming tree. Then, like mist, she fades. Donovan doesn't chase the vision. He smiles. He understands. The house is alive again, not from noise, not from activity, but from breath, from grace, from memory, and presence. He stands, walks down the hall, and turns off the last light. In the darkness, the home finally rests. Not haunted, not hollow, just full. And as he closes the door to the children's room, he hears one last sound. Soft, tender, laughter. 3 voices. 1 family, whole.